Greetings, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Beyond Second Cognition. I'm Beall. The topic of this discussion is the answer you don't want to hear about this process. I'm going to have to use a lot of allegorical imagery to explain this, because one of the hardest things for all of us to do is conceptualize how this stuff works. So sometimes we have to paint a theoretical picture to create a mind image to sort of get our heads around so we know what's going on. Before I do that, I want to thank all the patrons that have subscribed, those that have come over from YouTube, and any others that may have just stumbled on the channel. Your patronage is appreciated beyond measure. In talking about this PSOYCA transition, moving away from the Hapim virus hive habits and its control over our consciousness, we sort of have to have an overview of this construction we call the body. In the first place, you have the body, which represents its own form of consciousness, which kind of governs your autonomic systems, the things you do, like your kidney functions, your pancreas, keeps your heart beating, things like that you don't have any control over for the most part. The second factor is the body-mind. Now, the body-mind is tied in with the cellular system, and the body-mind can be trained. If you look at athletes and how they can train their muscles and things like that, the body-mind represents another form of consciousness. The third form of consciousness is the waking state awareness, what you would call your personality. But much of this personality has been shaped by the virus infection itself, and it's been shaped by culture, and it's been shaped by psychological manipulation, and it's been shaped by experience. So with these three factors, and you throw in the hive infection, then you get what we call the psyche. Under the effects of the Hapim virus, the waking state and the Hapim virus have competed with each other for supremacy over our minds, with each part of us at that level, the Hapim virus and the waking state consciousness, in competition over who's going to control what. Now, the virus learned to control us through our emotional centers, and it is through this emotional manipulation that the hive cell was able to manipulate the body and the mind to get us to do what it wanted rather than what we want to do. It's sort of like saying something crass to somebody and then thinking after the fact, I wish I hadn't have said that. Okay, what made you say that to begin with? Well, that's the virus side. Within this makeup, buried way down in the bottom, in the corner, all by itself, you have the PSOYCA sentience. And it kind of sits on the sidelines because the virus and the waking consciousness are in constant conflict, and they're both sitting there with a megaphone controlling everything. Every now and then, when you get quiet enough, when this internal competition between the virus and your waking state shut up long enough, the PSOYCA can zing through a message to you. And you get these moments of insight, your aha moments, things like that. But for the most part, the PSOYCA is sitting down there in this basement room, isolated all by itself, and you don't pay attention to it because you know it's not there, and it can hardly get a signal out past the screaming back and forth between the waking state and the Hapim virus. The process of this journey in the first part is to stop this competition between your waking consciousness and the virus, and the only way you can do that is one of two ways. You either have to destroy the virus and its habits within you, including its physiological responses and how it generates emotions to make you feel fear or anxiety or ebullience or whatever that makes the virus happy, or the virus destroys your consciousness, which is what all these goddamn sorry-ass spiritual traditions are trying to get you to do. Set aside your waking state and let the divine spark within take over. Well, that divine spark is the virus. The Hapim virus and the waking state are like oil and water. There was never going to be any emergence between these two elements. It was always a one or the other contest. The PSOYCA is sitting there waiting to see if anybody wins this contest. And many people go through their entire lives and take that contest to the grave, and at which point the body dies, the personality dies, and the Hapim hive cell was the victor, and it took all the memories and shit to the hive with it. So in the end, the hive cell was always the victor. By going through this erosion process, this eroding your beliefs and eroding your habits, and some of which I elucidated about fear in the thinking process and asking questions, you make more room for that PSOYCA part of you that's been living in the room in the basement to expand and start working with you more coherently as a collaborative effort, not as a competitive effort. Everything with the hive cell was competition. Everything with your personality was competition. Both sides screaming for superiority in your head. And this is the basis for the internal dialogue, why we argue with ourselves, ask ourselves questions, answer ourselves questions, rationalize the answers we want to hear, and then feel that we're perfectly fine for doing so, even if our rationale is irrational as the dickens. The more of this erosion program ridding we do, the more the PSOYCA sentient part of us is able to step out of that room and move into the house rather than being a prisoner in the basement, which is basically how it's been. Gemma discussed in her videos about traits being physiological, how empaths are more sensitive physiological than people that are not empaths. And the thing with empaths is a whole discussion on its own, and I'm not going to go there with this video. But what you have to realize is the more of the Hapim furniture you move off the stage set, and I used this analogy in one of the earlier videos about carrying out the trash, and eventually you get down to a point on the stage set where there's nothing left in the last piece of furniture and the Hapim virus crap is gone. Every step of the erosion process you progress along allows more of your PSOYCA sentience to expand and start working with you collaboratively rather than competing with you like the virus did. Now, people have asked us over and over again, how do I do this, or how did you do this? The answer you don't want to hear is how I did it is not going to be the same as how you're going to do it. Because, as she said in her video, each of our PSOYCAs chose a certain form that had certain physiological capabilities to do what we came to do. Now, as to how your PSOYCA sentience is going to exhibit its traits with your body to where you become cognitively aware of it and work in this collaborative effort, this merging, this symbiosis of these consciousnesses into one, you're just going to have to figure it out. The problem we have as a species is everybody's, just tell me how to do it. When you're doing this PSOYCA work, I can't tell you how to do it. There are certain commonalities in this process, like the erosion of beliefs, like finding your habits, like getting rid of all these phantom fears that keep you chained in, that have no real basis other than the fear of the Hapim virus and its fear of embarrassment or shaming or whatever the case may be. As to how your PSOYCA is going to manifest and what traits you may possess once you start to move closer to this emergence, this symbiosis with the PSOYCA sentience in your waking state, you're going to have to figure it out. And see, this is the one thing that just bugged the crap out of me over the years. And this is one of the major faults with the whole spiritual arena, particularly the New Age. They kept trotting out all these talents, you know, that, well, you need to be empathic and compassionate and all this other stuff. You cannot turn yourself into an empath. It can't fucking be done. If you don't have those physiological traits, you're pissing up a rope. But I got caught in that thinking that, oh, well, we all should be able to do everything, homogenization, doctrinal garbage that the New Age spat out. And I frustrated myself no end, chasing that rainbow, trying to do things that I'm not capable of doing within my form. Didn't matter if I crossed my eyes or held my mouth right or pulled my ear or whatever the case may be. I was not going to be able to do this because the shit is not standard. We are individuals. That means each of us has individual traits and individual talents and individual skills. And you're not going to find them following in the footsteps of somebody else. This is why all their meditative practices are group-oriented. People want to have it all spelled out for them. A, B, C. How do I do this? Just give me the fucking instruction manual and I'll do it. When it comes to figuring out how you tick, how you are going to coordinate and function with your PSOYCA sentience as you erode these virus habits, you're just going to have to figure it out. There's no how-to book. I can't tell you how you work. It took me years to figure out how I work, but this was based on false beliefs that there was some kind of cookie-cutter theme that would work for everybody. It's just not that way, folks. But if you look at these meditative practices and all this crap that spirituality puts out there like yoga, if you look at this stuff with a truly jaundiced eye, you're going to see that you are being herded or have been herded into these channels to create one desired result. And the end result was always to connect with the hive, to find the divine spark or find God or whatever other bullshit they were peddling. And I don't care if it's yoga, I don't care if it's transcendental meditation, or any other form of structured meditation, guided meditation they call it. That's real good. I mean, guided is the wrong word. They ought to say herded meditation, prodded meditation. Do it our way and we'll lead you to where we want you to go and where you think you want to go. There's no individuality in this. That type of meditation was a harness on your mind. Oh, you have to meditate this way. You have to sit zazen. You have to breathe right and all this other stuff. And all of these meditative processes that promote breathing right and everything else, they're all body oriented. And the hive cell was exquisitely body oriented. Meditation occurs anytime you can shut down your brain long enough to let your PSOYCA provide thoughts and insights to you. You can be driving down the road on a road trip or being stuck in traffic and not thinking about anything, or pulling weeds in your garden, or picking lint off your dog. Anytime you can get your mind to settle down enough to where you don't have this thinking machine running bam, 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 your PSOYCA can communicate with you. How you achieve this is your doing. You have to figure out how you tick. There is no how-to manual for each and every one of you that covers the gamut. The hive stuff, yeah, there was always some how-to manual because they know where they were leading you. They knew how they wanted to form you. They knew where you wanted to wind up, even if you didn't. But if you want to be an individual, a genuine, true individual, and know what your traits are and how you and your PSOYCA are going to create a symbiosis and work together, you're going to have to figure out, because nobody lives in your body but you. You and your PSOYCA and your form, you're on your own. And this is the answer you don't want to hear. We keep coming back and saying, tell me how to do it, tell me how to do it. This is how you do it. And it angers me even today how many years I wasted buying into this homogenous doctrinal bullshit about needing to meditate and how you have to love yourself and merge the male with the female and all the other diatribe they spew out with this mystical, hermetic, religious bullshit. If we had anybody along the line that bothered to tell us the truth, and we'd had the wisdom to listen rather than trying to emulate the herd and do the meditation and do the yoga and do all the other bullshit. Oh, wait a minute, I got to get vegan. Maybe if I turn vegan, I'll get what I'm looking for. It doesn't matter what you did. It was all going to lead to the same place, and it was going to be the destruction of your consciousness in favor of the hive. And the hive cell would have won out in your lifetime. I mean, you wouldn't even have had to wait for the grave. The hive cell would have won in your lifetime. If you want to be an individual, and if you want to work with a collaborative effort with your PSOYCA sentience, you're going to have to figure out how you're going to do that. We can explain certain common program removals and program removal in general, but you're still going to have to see your own internal programs and know this. Every time you remove a program, you're making more room for that PSOYCA sentient part of you to flex its muscles and stretch and come out of that little basement room you've had it sequestered all your life. But as to whether it's going to present you with communication abilities or other psychic abilities, you're not going to know what those traits or abilities are until you start figuring it out on your own. And this is the answer people don't want to hear, because, damn, I'm an individual. I'm on my own. I have to figure it out on my own. There's nobody to tell you how to figure out how you work. But this is your assignment. This is what you have to do. How do I tick? How do I bring this PSOYCA sentience forward more to where I can capitalize on a union rather than the life of competition that the hive cell led us to in our own minds? How do I bring about the symbiosis to where we become a single functioning unit and we don't have to think, well, here's me and here's my PSOYCA. You know, like all the old religious ideologies, well, here's me and here's my soul. PSOYCA is inserted in this form to become a unit. It's not in this form to become a competitor. Maybe getting past this one conceptual hurdle will help you. We can only take you so far, but so far as figuring out how your symbiotic relationship is going to work with your PSOYCA sentience, that's on your shoulders. I can't tell you how you make you work. You got to figure it out just like I did, just like Gemma did. And when you start getting insights from the PSOYCA part of you and you start listening to those, you're going to get guidelines on how you can function that way. But as long as you keep waiting for some external source to tell you, just tell me how to do it, you're not going to go anywhere, because you're not looking at yourself. You're not looking at how do I tick. You're looking for someone else to tell you how to tick. You want somebody else to wind up your clock, not wind it yourself. So hopefully this video gives people some guidance and some greater understanding. The conceptualizations may be simplistic, but if they help you get the idea, then I've accomplished what I needed to do with this video. And for those of you doing the work, stay the course. Don't give up on yourselves.